if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll know this is true, but I'm a big proponent of use whatever camera works. And I have my biases, okay, about what cameras I like and what cameras I don't like. I've made no bones about that. There's one camera that I don't like. Actually, no, it's a lie. There's a lot of cameras I don't like, but there's one in particular that when someone's like, hey, what do you think about this? I have a really hard time finding a positive thing, but I just got one. And if you are a member, you have access to the video in which I unbox it and find out that it actually works. So enjoy that video. Thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Join these lovely names. Become a Bronco buddy. Get exclusive content. All that good stuff. This is the camera. This is a Nikon EM. Let me bump this down just a smidgen. This is unequivocally one of my least favorite cameras that's out there. It is cheap. It's plastic. They very rarely work. It's incredibly limited, as you can tell by the wide range of options there. Kind of like a Pentax 17 in that way, but we have a few things that are nice about it. We got a bulb setting. We got a M90 setting. This camera can fire relatively well without any batteries required. Can fire on bulb and a mechanical 1/90th of a second speed. So that's pretty nice. Downsides to this camera. There is a lot of plastic just right here in particular. And in fact, it is prone to breaking. You can see that little bit of maybe not housing for your film back door latch release. That's a plastic post, kind of similar to the OM10, which also is prone to failure. And there's a little C-ring that clips into that, which I think over time can kind of sever it. So the Nikon EM, so far as I understand, was kind of released around the same time as like the Nikon FG, FG20, and the FA, all being different like degrees of quality. The EM is the cheapest of them. It's the most basic. It only has the 3 settings, yada, yada, yada. So the pro to that is that you can usually get these for not a lot of money. Sometimes they come with lenses, which this one did. So that's the bonus. The con is that they usually don't work. And unfortunately, they're usually not really worth trying to fix. Now, again, that's just my biased opinion because it's not an FM, it's not an FE, it's not these marketable, fancy, sexy names, so to speak. It's an EM, kind of renowned for its mediocrity. But this one, I was surprised initially because it comes in with the back door open and unable to latch properly. I do a little bend, it now closes. Okay, great. This is not moving too much. Okay, that's kind of nice. The advance lever is intact. That's always surprising. And it also fires on the mechanical speeds, which you'd think that's kind of a basic prerequisite because they're mechanical speeds. They should always work, right? You'd be fucking surprised. But it works. So I was like, okay, interesting. And then I just finished up the video for the members. I was talking about some stuff. And then I was like trying to figure out what I'm going to do because it comes with this lens, the Sigma 70-210. Interestingly enough, it also came with a receipt. This was bought in 1991 for like $160. That was including tax. I don't know what the inflation rate is, but I don't think you could sell this lens for $10, but we'll get back to this lens, don't you worry. Put the lens on the camera, thinking not much of it. And I was like, you know what, let me check the viewfinder out, see what it's like there. And at some point, I think I might have switched it over to auto, not really thinking too much of it. And then this faint sound. And all of a sudden, like a fucking Vietnam flashback, I realized this camera not only works, okay, but the batteries that are in it are still alive somehow. So I checked the battery, I'm like, oh shit. And I look through and the needle's moving. And I'm getting different shutter speeds. And this camera, I guess, just kind of works. Okay, great. So then a couple of thoughts are going through my head. I'm thinking, great, what darkness have I brought into my home? But then I think about this. What a beautiful opportunity this is. As somebody who so often claims you can take photos with any camera, whatever. And then I think it's about time that I really continue to put my money where my mouth is. Recently, I shot with a Canon T70 in a video that I'm hoping to have put out sometime next week. And I thought, maybe I'll just go down the list. What's another camera I hate? The Nikon EM. Maybe I'll give this a rip and see what it's like. I've never shot with one. The closest I came is I shot with a Nikon FG. So maybe this will be something interesting. So I'm going to do that, I guess, and then we'll kind of see where it goes. See how I feel, if my thoughts or feelings have changed on it. And maybe I can punt on some of the criticisms I have on the system after actually using it, or at least back them up with some more sound data and not just, but they're always broken. Next natural progression is this lens. This is a Sigma 70-210 lens. And I want to talk about this because it's something that's very important. One, nobody cares about, and two, probably doesn't really matter too much, but it's important nonetheless. And that is the lettering here, whatever, the symbols on the numbers and stuff on the lens themselves. As you'll notice, they're printed almost directly onto this rubbery whatever, and also in here and here and all of that. There's no engraving, it's not like this 51.8 where it's painted on, but it's also kind of etched in a little bit. It's literally just plastered onto the material that's holding the lens together essentially. And this is a problem because this, whatever this is, I don't really know if it's rubber or whatever rubber amalgamation, is the same or similar material that was used on like the Nikon N80, the Nikon N65. What was the other one I saw it on recently? I think the Nikon N55 or something like that. And there's a couple Canons that it's on as well. But the rubberized grip on all of those over time erodes. And you'll get it where it's just like super sticky. You like put your hand on it and your hand will just be covered in this black goo from the whatever rubber just breaking down over time. There's a few thoughts behind that. Heat, moisture, contact with the oils on your skin over time kind of rubbing this down and creating this gelatinous ooze that just kind of gunks everything together. But I've also heard that it is the byproduct of exposure to bug spray. Whatever active chemicals in bug spray seeps into this, creates that goo. There's like a top protective layer, and then I guess underneath that, I don't know. I don't really understand it too much, but I saw this lens, I immediately thought of it, and it's one of the worrying parts about third-party lenses, and more primarily old Sigma lenses, because they all kind of have this build. Now this is a Nikon mount, but Sigma made lenses for Canon, for Minolta, I think even for Olympus, but really for anything, and they all have a similar issue. So if you're, for whatever reason, if you have one of these, if you're gonna buy one of these, that's something to bear in mind. If you see the lettering just like on this, just know that this could come off. Like, you know, I could literally scrape it off if I wanted to. It's kind of coming off a little bit here, and it's not so sticky just yet, but there is a little bit of stick happening. So there's a few approaches that you can do to kind of combat that. If you have an N80 or something like that, alcohol works. I've used hand sanitizer and a rag and just kind of like cleaned it up, which has worked. But the problem with the camera is that it's going to take away that grip. It'll just make it smooth like a seal. And then obviously the problem with something like this is you're not going to have any of these numbers anymore. And some people don't really use these numbers anyway. It's, you know, they just kind of zoom until they want it and then rotate this till it's in focus, whatever. But that is something to bear in mind there. So ultimately, the project that I have, the challenge for myself, I fucking hate this, but I'm going to put a roll of film in this Nikon EM. I'm going to shoot with it, and then I will talk about it later. And I kind of just wanted to make this introductory piece to talk about this camera, but also point out how clean this booklet is that came with it. The most economical way to get in the Nikon system, that's exactly what it is. And for all the times that I've like dogged on this camera, I've really lost sight of the beauty of it is that it is an entry-level system, and that's great. I don't know what these were priced at originally, but I think it was pretty low, probably less than $500, which is cool. And then also you'll see here it has the 50-1.8 Series E lens, and this is a fantastic lens. It's really compact. They do have some lens element separation issues, but for the most part it's a great lens. And couple that with this, if this is a working body, this is a great little system to get into photography. It doesn't give you all of the settings you need to it doesn't give you the full range of control that you kind of want, but ultimately, if you just want to use Nikon lenses, if your dad or your mom had a Nikon camera and a bunch of lenses and they wanted to share, this is an easy, affordable way to get into it. And ultimately, I'm kind of stoked about it. Not really, but I'm kind of stoked. I'm really stoked about this booklet though. I love a good booklet, and now I'm just kind of stalling out because I don't want to shoot with this camera. But just kidding, let me go grab some film and we'll load into it. An interesting thing about this camera and other Nikon cameras kind of at that time is that, I don't know, those light seals look pretty rough. Yeah, it'll be fine. We'll see. This will be an experiment of light seals too. Do you really need them? Obviously, yes you do, but anyway. Basically, you have the S here on your frame counter, right? So we'll shoot through there. And the actual camera doesn't really start working until you get to the 1. So now that I'm at 1, the auto setting is going to actually beep properly, but if I were to open it up, reset the frame counter, it's not going to have any of the mechanical, it's not going to have any of the electronic functions of the light meter, automatic shutter speeds, so on and so forth. It's the same way with the F3, it's the same way with their FG and all that stuff, but it is interesting to see that same concept brought into their affordable, economic intro SLR system. I think it's another one of the things that I do really, at the end of the day, appreciate about the Nikon brand is their consistency. And when a lot of people pick up a Nikon camera, even if they're picking up a Nichromat or if they're picking up an F1 or an F4, there's so much consistency throughout their brand. You know, the lenses are virtually all interchangeable. They all mount the same way. They all have like some of the same functionality and controls. There's a familiarity, I think, throughout the totality of their camera line that I really respect ultimately. Even something that I think is kind of objectively cheap and kind of crappy as this Nikon EM, the fact that it still carries on some of those traits, those base design features, is something to celebrate. So that's probably the nicest thing I'll say about this, but I am willing to give it a shot. I'll go take it out, shoot some photos. I'm not going to use this lens the full time, but I do want to try it out at the very least and kind of go from there. I'm interested to see how sharp this is, but probably not very, but we'll see. Anyway, that's all for now. Thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it as always. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and if you feel so inclined, join the channel as well, become one of the Bronco buddies, and get early access to videos, exclusive content, all that good stuff. That's all for now. Thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.